Hello and welcome to the Think Liberty podcast. This is episode 35. See, I remembered this time. In this episode, we're going to talk about how to be productive working on liberty, but outside of the Libertarian Party. We all just got back from the Libertarian Party National Convention, and there was quite a bit of heat involved. So we wanted to take a minute to talk about how you can kind of work on liberty if you'd like, and maybe avoid some of that heat. So joining us on this episode, I'll go ahead and get to our special guests first. We've got Zachary Taylor and Nathan Porrata from the Roads to Liberty podcast, and I'm sure a bunch of other podcasts on that same network that I'm not remembering the names to right. How are you guys doing this evening?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much.
I remembered, by the way.
You did. I know. Now Chris is going to do it, and yeah, thanks a lot. Okay. And, kind of a full house tonight. So we've also got Chris with us. Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I don't care how you are, Vinny.
That's what I like to hear, buddy. Caitlin, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm getting over being sick and getting back from convention, but overall doing well.
I want to open it up with you, Zach. Now, I know that you personally were pretty affected on a soul-wrenching level from a lot of what happened leading up to the convention. So, like I said, we're talking about, how to work on the liberty movement outside of the Libertarian Party. And this is a topic that you actually approached me with. So I wanted to open it up by giving you a moment to talk about this topic and why it's important to you and why it's something that you're interested in at the moment.
So, twofold answer, because the reason I always get teased for the Roads to Liberty thing and the names being weird is I also do the Roads to Freedom Foundation, which is a completely different thing, I swear, guys. But so the foundation, the purpose that we have is to grow private enterprise and find free market solutions so that it basically subverts government and weakens it and people stop using it. So I have a vested interest in seeing things outside of the Libertarian Party grow. But then in the Libertarian Party itself, like the attacks on Josh hurt me watching them. The vitriol from the Socialist Caucus, the Audacious Caucus, and the Mises Caucus, because some of them got pretty nasty too. It was too much. I actually, and I feel terrible about this, I cast my vote for none of the above for the chairs race because I thought that it would go more than one round and I would still get a chance to vote for Josh. But I wanted to make a stand on, like, hey, this was disgusting and I want to send a message. And then I didn't get to make that vote later, but at least he got on at large. But it was gross. And we need to do better. And until I see a lot of improvement from the LP, like the members, I'm going to be more focused on the foundation work that I do because I'm guaranteed to always be working with good people because all the people that we work with are awesome. So,
yeah, it's similar for me. That stuff, all of it from all the sides had really burned me out as well, leading up to the convention and during it. I was actually working the Being Libertarian table there on Radio Row, and my time spent there was fine. It was good. I enjoyed what I was doing, and I enjoyed the time spent. Whenever I heard about what was going on the floor, or I went down on the floor, it's just, I just felt like I was just there, and someone would come to me with, "Oh, we got this drama just happened, or this other thing just happened." And to echo what you're saying, Zach, it was nice to just kind of sit back and not be a part of that, not be involved in that. But at the same time, obviously doing work to help candidates and to help spread the message and things like that. So for me, I was much more comfortable, working kind of in an outside arm of what was going on. So everyone other than Nathan here was also at the convention. So let's just go down the line. And I'd just like to hear you guys' initial thoughts on this topic. and kind of the feelings that you have as well. Let's start with you, Chris.
All right. Well, thank you, Vinny. I hear a lot of what Zach was saying, and I kind of felt a similar way about like just watching kind of all of the mudslinging happen, and I tried to stay mostly out of it. But going into the convention, I was like, okay, either one of two things is going to happen. Either this is going to be the end for me in the LP, and I'm going to try to focus, or national LP, and I'm going to try to focus more on state and local elections and try to back candidates and do social media management for them and things like that. Or I'm going to join a caucus and I'm going to get more involved in the national party. And something that kind of played into that was that the way elections turned out, and then how position stances changed and things like that. But moving, and so I thought the way everything turned out was good enough to compel me to stay in. I didn't agree with everything that happened, but I think there are officers that were elected that will have a hand in changing some of the things that I disagree with, and I think it was just enough to keep me in. I hope that answers your question.
No, totally. And you know what? I agree with that. I definitely think that after the whole convention and everything, things have been more tame. It seems that when people had the opportunity to kind of get face to face, some of this stuff smoothed out by the time the convention was over. So it seems to be a little more mellow now, to your credit. And I'll agree. It does seem like some good people were elected to positions that, hopefully they can do well with. All right. So let's keep moving down the line. Caitlin, how about you?
Well, leading up to the convention, I mean, it was pretty nasty on all sides of it, and there was nobody who was innocent and all that. That was disheartening, seeing people that you respect and you look up to and you work with on a daily basis just get so nasty towards each other. And honestly, everyone said, "Oh, this is just terrible. It'll be over after convention." I haven't really seen it let up too much. There's still a lot of fighting over what happened at convention and how things are going to go moving forward. There's still attacks going on all over the place. Honestly, I've kind of been in the place lately where I feel that my time is best spent doing independent work. So independent media outlets like Think Liberty and, being libertarian, and helping candidates independently. That's where I feel the work is lacking in the LP anyways. And I don't need to be a part of the party structure to do that. I feel it's bogged down too much with petty bullshit, really, that things aren't getting done the way they need to. And the best way to make an impact, at least for me, and the investment on my time, is doing things independently and looking for a way to help and just going for it and not having to go through the party to do so.
Yeah. I obviously I agree. We've discussed this. And maybe I just haven't been paying as much attention because of what happened. To me, it seems like things have calmed down a little bit. But you're also in a lot more of these circles than I am. So it would stand to reason I hadn't noticed. Nathan, you weren't there for the convention, so but I mean, obviously you've been around for everything leading up to it and everything after it, and you've been in that same space that we are, where we see everything happen. So how about you? What's your 2 cents on the matter?
Well, I mean, I have the benefit of living in the state where most of the libertarians get along, so we generally don't have a lot of the fighting that you saw from, in national groups all over the place. But I did get to watch the convention on YouTube, and I mean, it didn't seem like, as contentious as the atmosphere was going in, that after the chair debate, things really seemed to settle down. You know what I mean? The first day of the convention, from what I gather, was crazy. And I remember watching the chair debate on Facebook, and the crowd was just yelling and shouting, and they would not shut up. It's one of those things. Like, I really wish libertarians would just calm down, because libertarians are supposed to be the rational ones in the room. We're supposed to be the thinkers. We're supposed to be the ones that are presenting rational, consistent, logical arguments. But get 1,000 of us in a room and we're all just bickering at each other and yelling at each other, and it's absolutely nuts. And that's probably one of the things that hurt Josh in that debate, is because of all the people in the crowd that were just yelling and shouting at the debate stage. I mean, it was a madhouse in there. So, I mean, I'm generally speaking, I don't get very disillusioned with the Libertarian Party, because, as I said, in Nebraska, we have a very good group of people that don't fight that way. So I see all those people fighting on Facebook and that convention and think, wow, glad I'm not there. And then I go to our local party meeting and we're all getting along. We're all advancing the message of liberty. We're all planning events, supporting candidates. And, it really all just depends on who's in your local area, who you have to actually face-to-face work with. If those people you can get along with, then you'll have no problem in the LP. If you just ignore a lot of that national stuff.
Yeah, it's hard to ignore, though. I mean, you'll see the arguments made a lot with people that say, just ignore national and focus on your state stuff. But, we've come to see time and time again that what national does, does in fact affect states. You've got statements that people make from national that have absolutely affected people in their state parties.
No, that stuff absolutely does affect your state. And
it can. Yeah. The thing is, too, though, is national, no arm of the Libertarian Party has as much influence as national does. Just speaking alone on social media mediums, and when you're talking about grassroots organization, social media can play a large part at that. So while it's true that for the most part, maybe nowadays, outside of ballot access, national doesn't play too big a part, but it could. And if it was playing a positive part in helping the states and helping the candidates, I think it would be a different discussion that we'd be having. But it's not always the case, and maybe that's for a different discussion. I don't want to tie this up too much. So we've discussed now, why things are getting tense. And to anyone listening who's maybe not as familiar with the Libertarian Party, and I don't know why there would be anyone that isn't as familiar with it, but in case there is anyone listening and they're not, it's just always like this. It always seems to be contentious. There always seems to be some kind of infighting that's really drawing this passionate divide, and people are going at each other's throats in really personal ways. And as you can tell from listening to us, kind of describe what's been going on and how it's made us feel, it tends to take a toll, right? And so we've been talking about ways that you can work outside the party. And that's not to say in any way, shape, or form that you have to shun the party in doing so. So one of the ways I was thinking we can discuss here is working for candidates. Now, I love working for candidates. I I'll oftentimes do their websites and their t-shirts. I just did a really nice looking website for Roger Barris of Colorado. You can check it out at Barris4 Congress.com. And I made a cool shirt for him too. They look a lot like the Think Liberty shirts, and that kind of stuff's fun. They appreciate it a lot. They appreciate having good looking media and good looking merchandise. And it's fun, rewarding work, for me to do. So we'll start with you, Zach. Why don't you talk to us a little bit about the work you've done for candidates, maybe some candidates that you like, and anything like that.
So I did a little bit of work for Tyler Glow, who was running for school board in Omaha. Unfortunately, that race turned into a bunch of people who were way too qualified jumped in, and it was a buzzsaw, so that didn't go very far. I started helping Larry Sharp with video editing, and that's gone really well, and it's also helped me grow as an editor, because they'll come back and be like, well, can you fix this thing that's really shitty? And I'll be like, let me go research, because that's not a skill I have right now. So that's been fun. I run social media for Steve Sheets at this point, kind of. That's a little difficult because I don't know anything about Pennsylvania, so it's hard for me to be as effective at that, but it's kind of better than him not having someone, so I do the best I can. And then someone just messaged me when we started about working for someone in South Dakota. So I'll be looking into that when we get done. And then I say that I'm backing away from the party, but I am trying to get on the candidate support committee so that I can help connect good new media people with candidates and be a bridge there. And then if I can't give someone a good new media person, I will train who they have to not suck at it, basically. So that's kind of what I'm looking for.
And see that, but I totally understand taking that angle on it. Like, even to me, that sounds way less stressful, right, than like bickering over platform planks.
Yeah,
or arguing about bylaws, or telling like someone who does or doesn't belong.
We have all these people who, they're LPs like, we want 2,000 candidates. Well, first off, you don't have 2,000 campaign managers, so no. You don't have 2,000 new media people. You don't have 2,000 fundraisers. You don't have the support staff yet. And frankly, I am batting way above my head right now doing the things that I do. But unfortunately, there's like 20 people in our party who are better than me, and half of them are in this call. So that's basically where we're at right now.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I'll jump to Caitlin next. Caitlin, I know you do tons of work for every page on the internet and every candidate behind it. How about you on this question? Any candidates you're working with, and how's your experience been working with candidates thus far?
It's been a mixed bag, really, working with candidates. Currently, I have, I think, 5 that I'm working for. Matthew Swenson for Minnesota State Rep, Jill Galvin for Minnesota State Rep. I worked on Emily Mellingen's state Senate campaign in the special election back in February. I just got added to Rex Lawhorn for Governor of Oklahoma's social media team. Evan Shaw and Angela McCardle both for California state Senate seats as well. I was the social media director for Jesse Fullington's state rep campaign as well, but he dropped out in January, I believe. So a lot of my candidates have dropped out early, so I haven't had a successful full campaign yet, but hopefully Matthew Swenson and Jill Galvin both run successful campaigns, as well as Rex Lawhorn. I think he's got a real shot at this. His social media is doing really well. I think he's in a contested primary right now, but it's looking good. So yeah, I mean, I do social media management for basically anyone who needs my help. I do a lot of consulting as well. People ask me like, hey, my posts aren't doing that great. What can I do for this? And I'll, work on a posting schedule with them, teach them how to use their analytics. Basically just give them a rundown of how to utilize their social media correctly. So that's a lot of what I do for candidates. I also have been helping my state LP with affiliate building. That's been interesting. It's been difficult to get it started, but yeah, I mean, I'm constantly busy doing freelance stuff for candidates, for other pages, even other media outlets, stuff like that. So.
Hey, so real quick, Caitlin, we had both of the 2 main Oklahoma people on our podcast. I felt like Rex was the stronger candidate, and I was really surprised that there's a runoff, but Chris Powell, I think is his name, had the better showing in the primary so far. Can you talk about that at all? Because it really confused me, because when I have heard both of them, Rex just felt like a better candidate to me. So I don't do you know what's going on there?
I honestly, I don't. I haven't been involved in the primary stuff. I just got added to his team actually over convention weekend. Yeah, I don't really know. I see Rex as the stronger candidate, by far, over Powell and the other one who's kind of a mess. I can't remember his name, but anyway, there's another one running.
Yeah, he dropped out. Well, he was forced out because of the primary, so they're into the runoff phase now.
Yeah, fun stuff. But yeah, I see Rex as the stronger candidate, definitely. I mean, I wouldn't be working with him if I didn't see him as a strong candidate. because I don't know. I've had bad experiences with candidates in the past that weren't dedicated to running for office, and it made my job extremely difficult. So yeah, I love Rex. I think he's great. I think he's definitely the best candidate. But yeah, I don't know the drama and stuff going on in the primary. I know there's a lot, but
Drama in politics? You don't say.
right.
Chris,
Yeah.
how about you, buddy? Have you been working with candidates, and are there any that you'd like to speak on?
Yeah, I have been working with candidates. So actually yesterday I had the opportunity to go to the as a Pride event at the city nearby, at a city that was nearby, and the Iowa LP was able to go to that event and was able to platform candidates and for state house, senate, and governor. And so Jake Porter, who's running for Iowa governor, I've been working with his campaign and his campaign manager and going through like messaging and social media and trying to get Bitcoin donations for him and other cryptocurrency donations to be able to be available to him. I'm now the campaign director for Myra Matega for State House, and I'm currently going through her social media. You kind of caught me off guard because I was working through some things during the podcast, but yeah, so that's currently what I'm doing kind of at a local level. But so far out of candidates and kind of outside the party, I'm actually working on building a small business that would alleviate some of the state control and regulations possibly upon restaurants and bars. And so that's kind of a thing that I'm focused in right now, where it's kind of liberty focused, but it's more outside politics completely. So that's something else to consider for people who want to be active outside the Libertarian Party, is look for, opportunities to start businesses where you can kind of get the government off people's back. So that's what I think about it.
Nathan, how about you, buddy?
I've helped out with Senator Laura Epke a lot. Been out to her district quite a few times, knocking on doors, walking parades, making phone calls for her. She had a program where you could write postcards for people in her district. They were specialized for people based on their age or occupation, whatever the case may be. And you write the postcards in, and then you send them out. I think she got postcards to almost everybody in her district, so that helped her out a lot. But when it comes to candidates outside Nebraska, I don't really do a whole lot there. I mostly focus for people who are, in my local area. And as far as stuff that I do outside of the Libertarian Party, I mean, for one, of course, there's the podcast that I help host. I mean, we all know about that. But there's a couple other things that I do out for the liberty movement that aren't necessarily political. I think the first thing that's the most important thing for people to do if they're in the liberty movement and just as human beings in general is, I mean, I have a 3-year-old son and I raise him with my values. I teach him to not harm people. I teach him the value of respecting other people's stuff, and being a peaceful and decent human being. I mean, that all human beings should do that, but it's one of the most valuable and long-term things libertarians can do to further our movement going forward, is just to make sure that we instill our values in our families and in the people around us to like, as well as being a libertarian, I'm also a Christian. And one of the things that you do is try to be as good a person as you can. So, if you're just a good person, if you live your values, if you live your life in a way that you should, and people respect you, then you're a missionary for liberty, for lack of a better word. You're being the kind of person the liberty movement needs. No one ever converted anyone to this movement by being a dick. No one ever converted anybody to this movement by calling them a murderer or a thief or a welfare whore. You do it by being a good human being that other people want to respect and be around. So that's the biggest thing people can do. And in my spare time, I'm also a fiction writer. I write novels. Now, I haven't gotten anything published yet, but I always try to instill my liberty values in what I write in a natural and organic way. You know,
aren't you you're a Randoid, aren't you?
A Randoid, like a Rand Paul guy?
No, Ayn Rand.
Oh, yeah.
No, I just picked up on that, the fiction thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and that's actually one of the big reasons, because, yeah, I like Ayn Rand, and call me crazy, but I actually like the stories, not just the philosophy in her books. I know, crazy, right? These long 1,000-page books.
No, I mean, look, it's not crazy at all. And on our episode we had with Tristan Herring, the objectivist kid that we talked to, that was one of the things that I actually gave her credit for, is that she found a way to, most of the literature that we have for libertarianism is pretty dry. It's like, mostly economic stuff. And while it's fun for a lot of us to read, I don't know if it's so fun for a lot of other people. So she was able to break through culture in an entertainment sense by making fiction books, and it really caught on. So
yeah,
I think I'd give her a positive notch for that one.
Yeah, I mean, you can object to the philosophy all you know, but there's no denying the impact she had and the influence she had on future generations of libertarians. I mean, if you go back to the original founding of the Libertarian Party, a lot of the people who were there were Ayn Rand objectivists. So she definitely had a huge impact, and she's had a huge impact on me, because it was only because I read Atlas Shrugged that I got back into politics. Like, I was a libertarian before, but I wasn't really active in any way. And then I read Atlas Shrugged. I'm like, all right, liberty, I'm all in on this again. And that gets reflected in the stories I write. The themes that end up in my novels are always very liberty-based. And hopefully someday that'll pan out. And hopefully somewhere down the line, years and years and years from now, there'll be some dude reading one of my books going, you know what? Liberty is awesome. I'll give this a try.
Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. So I think this is good. We're moving now on to, away from just the candidate stuff and talking about some of the other things that we do. So I'll start first with this. We talk about, let's now just discuss some of these things just completely removed from the party that you like to do, and why exactly you like to do it. For me, I really enjoy doing these articles or videos where you break something down, because I feel like so much of what goes on in politics, the Fed is a perfect example of this, or the crisis in 2008. Like, people don't completely understand what's going on. Like, they don't understand why something is bad or why libertarians might be against it, right? Most people, I think, don't understand what the Fed does, right? And so I love having opportunities to kind of take what's going on there and break it down and help people understand what it is and why we're so pissed off about it. The gun debate is another great one here. There are so much facts and information tied into these statistics that people share as a way to attack gun rights. And, picking that apart is really fun for me, because the data and the information is there. All you have to do is pull it apart. And what seems to be the case is people do tend to like that kind of thing, that kind of presentation, where you peel away some of the narrative and you show a little bit more of what the story really is. So that's something that I really enjoy doing, that I would say is completely unrelated, to the party itself. That's just stuff that we put out, on Think Liberty. Let's jump to you, Zach. How about you? What are some things, completely unrelated to the party that you enjoy doing to help this movement along?
I mean, for me, like, most of my energy at this point goes to the foundation.
So you were talking about the foundation. I know you've mentioned this a little before, so maybe we can just unpack a little bit more of what exactly you do for the foundation. So you say you work to try and ease things up a little bit, right? Where government and state procedure may muck things up. Why don't you explain to us a little bit about what you mean and what exactly the foundation does there?
Well, what our goal is to educate and empower people to let me back up a little. So our platforms are cash-based healthcare, alternate currencies, and alternates to government education. And what we want to do is educate and empower entrepreneurs in these fields to come up with solutions while government is still in the marketplace, so that people can see that government does not provide the best product and they will move to these other products because they're better. And when people stop using the government, then the government will slowly die and we will have won without having to have some of these big political fights or revolutions. I think that in a way we've kind of gone towards agorism, I think is how you pronounce that, with the way that we approach things. But at this point, I'm not sure that politics is the way to win this fight. And I view the party as kind of the shield, and empowering individuals to find solutions outside of government is the sword. So, and then I do the new media. So that means I'm in charge of the Facebook, Twitter. We have a Snapchat, Instagram, YouTube, and I have other people that help me with those things, but I'm the one ultimately responsible for our content.
Perfect. Okay, and so Chris, why don't you do the same? Explain a little bit. You talked about starting a new business, so maybe explain a little bit more on that if you're comfortable with it, and maybe anything else that you have in mind that you enjoy doing, completely unrelated to the party, that help Liberty.
All right. Well, thank you, Vinny. Well, I kind of can't go into too many details about what the projects that I'm working on right now until, of course, the product is unveiled and everything like that. But basically,
Sure.
what I'm going to do is basically data management for this particular company, and what the data that I'm going to be collecting, and on a cloud-based network and things like that, is basically designed to keep the health department from having to go to these restaurants and bars and go in to inspect them and make sure their equipment is being cleaned. It's supposed to alleviate that tension for the business owner and actually turn it into automation. And hopefully this will transfer to the health department and being like, well, we don't have to have a lot of these agents, go out, and maybe we need to cut costs somewhere. We're not using up all our funds. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know. But it's kind of from a bottom level way to be like, hey, we don't need you. We can do this on our own, kind of thing. And so kind of like what Zach was talking about with like agroism and things like that. It's kind of like the bottom level interactions between two people that that kind of say that, well, we've automated this, technology moved forward, we don't need these old methods anymore, this government function is outdated. And I think moving that idea forward into other arenas and other modes of business is important. And for people who are more business minded, who are libertarian, I think that's something that should be focused on. And they should probably think, well, there's a way that the government kind of restricts us in this aspect. What can we do to maybe communicate with other people who are like-minded to us to try to alleviate this a little bit? And then just by the method of your business, you take the government out of saying that they have to do this for you, because they literally don't anymore. Beyond that, kind of moving on into other things that I'm involved in, and kind of what Vinny, you touched on a little bit, was just like things that you do, like hobbies that you're in. A lot. For example, I'm connected to some veterans groups and on social media and otherwise. And a lot of these veterans groups know that the VA the VA sucks, and that the VA needs to be reformed, and a lot of this. And there's a lot of conversation passed, and they generally believe in life, liberty, and property, and because they're American and they love America and its values. So they have that that under their belt, and that's a conversation topic if you're into those kind of circles. So, I mean, it's all about knowing how to gear the messaging of towards those kind of subgroups of people and where you fit in with those subgroups of people, and you can be an advocate in that realm. So I think that's kind of where I'm at right now.
No, that's good. That's good. And to your point, right? You're talking about what things you can do with technology or with business, to kind of remove arbitrary positions that the government takes that kind of mucks things up at the end of the day. And blockchain's a great example of this. And you don't really think about it, but you have to figure how many people are working in government whose job is just to basically input data or file something. Right. And a blockchain is essentially an automated, secure way of doing that.
Right. And if I kind of want to give a shout out to some company that I met at the national convention who's actually kind of working on this very idea that you're going to talking about relating to blockchain technology. They're trying to get into it. It's a company called We Do Better, and it's wedobetter.org. And I met the executive director, Dan Johnson, at the national convention, and it's all about using private charities into a networking hub in which they can alleviate public assistance from welfare and things like that, and WIC and all that other kind of stuff. They can alleviate that and take people out of government control, but they're looking into investing into putting all of this into the blockchain, which is a just amazing idea. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. So wedobetter.org.
Yeah, everyone should check it out. That's a great idea. Okay. Caitlin, how about you?
Honestly, I'm focused a lot on education. Obviously, working with Think Liberty, we're an education-based publication. Also, being libertarian, same kind of thing. I think it's not necessary for someone to be involved in the party to be a part of the liberty movement. You have all these independent organizations, like the 10th Amendment Center, Foundation for Economic Education, FEE, Reason, Cato, Mises, all these independent organizations that work outside of the party have their place. It's to connect with people on single issues, and that starts to change the culture. So everyone, comes into libertarianism usually through one issue that's important to them, whether it's foreign policy, economics, civil rights, what have you. We have to change the culture. And that's a lot bigger than the Libertarian Party. The party's there for, electoral success. That's only one arm of the liberty movement as a whole. So we have to, there has to be a ton of people in the movement to get in every aspect of changing the culture, whether it's, influencing opinion through, movies and music and, being a celebrity and using your voice to, spread the message of liberty. Instead of, a lot of the celebrities we have who just, hate Trump and that's all they talk about. We need libertarian celebrities as well, a lot more of them. But yeah, there's lots of room for people in the movement to change culture. And I think that's the direction I want to go more of. I'm not super creative, so I'm not going to be, doing, music and movies and all this shit. But I focus more on the education aspect, and I think there's tons of room for more of that. So I think changing culture is a really good way to do that. I mean, we had Eric July on our podcast, and that's what he focuses on as well. In a different aspect, it's really important for activists to find where they're comfortable changing things. So.
I agree. This is an interesting topic, so I want to stay on this a little bit. So what you're describing, if you're talking about it in like sales or marketing, to anyone who might not be totally clear on, kind of what exactly is in play here. Now, let's say that you're a company and you sell a user a product, right? And so if you're kind of gauging what that customer is in relation to your company, they just bought a product, right? So it's just kind of a one-time purchase, and that's kind of like what Caitlin's talking about here with like the single issue stuff. Right? And so if you can convert someone on a single issue, that's really great. It's a good thing, but they're not what you call in like the business world a brand advocate, right? That's something completely different. And I think that's what happens when you start to affect culture, right? A brand advocate is someone that not only buys your product, right? That's someone that's going to go out of their way to always have your products, right? A great company that has like an army of, of brand advocates is Apple. You see this all the time. People go on and on about the cult of Apple, right? But that's precisely what it is. Is their product has now penetrated on a culture level to where people are not just people that will purchase a product. It's not like you just go and you buy one Apple product. There's a lot of people out there that will go out of their way to make sure they only buy Apple products. So they're going to get a laptop. They're going to make sure it's an Apple laptop. They're going to get a phone. They're going to make sure it's an Apple phone. They're going to get a tablet. Same thing there, right? And they're going to have as much Apple stuff as they can because they're a brand advocate, right? And that's really what culture does. Culture is like the kind of the catch-all. That's the golden goose, right? The one you want to hit, because when you hit that, that's when you get to people to the advocacy stage, to where they're really, really behind something and they're really all about it. Let's go to you, Nathan. What are your thoughts on this? Caitlin mentioned like backwards. We talked to you a little bit about Rand. See, I'm not going to say her first name. What are some ways that you think libertarians can do a little bit better of a job at affecting culture?
Well, just being involved in it, for one. I mean, I think a lot of times libertarians focus so much on the political issues that we miss that culture is really way more important than politics. Politics is downstream from culture. If you want to change politics, you got to change the culture that politics exists in. You know what I mean? People need to be libertarians before we can have a libertarian government, or at least sympathetic to libertarian ideas. You can't expect a country full of statists to suddenly hear somebody say, let's abolish the drug war, and expect them to just jump on board with that. They need to be convinced first. So libertarians need to be involved in the culture war. We can't be sitting on the sidelines, talking about politics all day when culture is going on, underneath our very noses. So yeah, be involved in your local community. Be involved with things that are going on around you. Don't spend all your time on Facebook arguing about stuff that really has no difference in the real world whatsoever. If you want to affect politics, you need to affect your community first. And to do that, you need to be involved in your community. You actually got to be out there doing stuff, meeting people, talking to them, not being a dick to them. It's very important for a lot of libertarians to remember. So if you want to affect change in this country, it has to be cultural first, and then the politics will follow naturally from that.
Okay, that's fair. Zach, how about you, buddy?
So I just want to add on a little bit to something he said. So if you look at how essentially socialism became cool in this country, and I know that we hate that, but I think it's important to understand where that came from. It's because high school and college teachers preach socialism. And since parents in America have completely abdicated their responsibilities and let the school system babysit their kids, if we want to make a big dent here, we should have more libertarian teachers. And I know that that's going to trigger the Arvin Voras of the world, who are going to call them welfare whores, but you go where the battle is being fought. You don't stand miles away and scream for them to come fight you where you are. I mean, that's not going to work. They have, like, we are too small of a movement to dictate the terms of the fight. So we have to go be school teachers, be coaches, be mentors, and show the beauty of freedom to people who are still developing, so that they don't just get flooded with socialist garbage for their entire developmental part of their life and then we completely lose them for the rest of their life. I really think that we should kind of come off of our high horse on that one a little bit.
No, that's good. That's a good argument. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, Zach, because think about it. How many people have become libertarians in their 50s or their 60s? It doesn't happen. People do not form their political beliefs when they're later in life, at least not most people. Most people form their political views in their college and high school years. So, yeah, that's a good point. If we want to change this country in the long term, because in the short term, we're probably not going to change this country all that much, but in the long term, it's possible. And if we want to change it in the long term, that's probably not a bad route to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, I think it's a good argument made. Certainly. Chris, how about you on the topic of culture, changing culture, how to go about it and how important you think it may be?
Well, I think Zach makes a really good point about schools, and I was talking to a lot of over the convention. I was talking to some of the cats from the Mises caucus, and I noted that we kind of tend as libertarians to go back to these older philosophers, or like even ones like the most recent ones probably from the 1970s or maybe venturing into the 80s. But I kind of posed the question. It's like, when are we going to see well-read, well-educated libertarian philosophers come about within the millennial generation? And I think it's something that kind of needs to be. I think that the Mises Institute does well to kind of foster that. But getting libertarians into the academic arena, not just actually, teaching as is a big part of that. Getting them into the academic arena and actually affecting learning and different ways of thinking in that area, I think is probably one of the more important things, to tell you the truth. So far as also different things in the culture, social media is great too, but also actually getting out and like attending events that you probably normally wouldn't have, where people are generally like free-spirited people, where they kind of go to relax and, be, like 4th of July events, or like, community barbecues, block parties, pride events, things like that. They're all kind of ways that you can kind of, start conversations, that just as like someone is just a normal person.
Get into arguments.
You can kind of, don't try not to get into arguments, but learn to package your individual messaging to where you can kind of it can kind of like move the conversation a certain way, and talk to people and things like that. So that's just something that like I think everybody can do, is social media, and then actually go to local events and just talk to people. Really, like, don't get off your keyboards and actually do stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think obviously there's tons and tons of value to that. I think there's I don't think it's one or the other, though. I think a lot of time people frame it that way. They frame it like you're either doing your work on a computer or you're doing your work out there. And I think for this movement to be successful, it needs to be a well-rounded attack on both fronts.
Absolutely. And I only say that because I see a lot of libertarians that do social media well, and Caitlin is one of those people. She's a wizard at it, and I think it needs to be kept balanced between the two. So yeah,
sure,
I agree with you.
You guys have all echoed a lot of the same sentiment, and it's important to get out there and talk to people, and get the ideas out there and have conversations. For us, like, you'll see our shirts, for instance. Our shirts look a little bit different probably than some of the other liberty themed shirts that you see, and there's a very deliberate reason for that. Is it's we're trying to do exactly that, right? You're trying to make something that is I guess, for lack of a better term, cool, right? Something that looks, at least my goal was always to have it look a little bit more like a band shirt, or something like that, something that someone wants to wear, just not only because they agree with what's on it, but because they think it looks really cool. And there's all kinds of different ways you can do all of these things and be effective. And I do want to clarify that this episode isn't so much to trash on the Libertarian Party or to tell people, here are some ways that you can get away from the Libertarian Party or leave the Libertarian Party and go do this instead. That's not at all the case. I think the message that I would like to put across, at least personally, is that, sometimes it can be draining and there is a lot of infighting. And instead of completely walking away from it, I think it's important to realize that there are other elements and there are other facets of doing work and promoting the ideas of liberty that don't involve you having to be tied up in that stuff all the time. So at least you have some kind of release to when like Zach is talking about, it's just really getting to the core of your soul. You can turn around and, like he's talking about, maybe you can go and work on some Larry Sharp videos, or like, Lonnie's talking about, you can go and you can put up some memes, or you can go to an event, you can talk to some people and shake some hands, and you can get away from that stuff for a bit. So when you go back to it, it's not just as exhausting and totally beating you over the head. We've been on a good one here. We're coming up to it, so I think we'll wrap it up. Before we do, Zach, Nathan, whoever wants to take the reins, why don't you guys let people know where they can find you elsewhere and what some of the stuff is that you guys are working on and where people can go and look for it.
Well, I'll take the Roads to Liberty stuff, and Zach can do the Roads to Freedom stuff. You can find us online. We're at roads2liberty.com. You can find us on Facebook. We're on Twitter at roads2liberty. We're also on Minds, that we don't post there quite as much. And then you can like us in any of your favorite podcasting apps. We're on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, all that good stuff. So remember, roads2liberty.com is probably the best place to find our episodes.
So the foundation, it's Roads to Freedom Foundation on Facebook, Snapchat, and Instagram. It's Roads to Freedom on Twitter, and on YouTube, it's Roads to Freedom Media.
Okay, perfect. And as always, you can find us through any of the places that you regularly listen to podcasts. We're on iTunes, we're on Stitcher, we're on SoundCloud, all that stuff. Just look for the Think Liberty Podcast Network, Think Liberty Network. I don't even know what we name it anymore. I'm terrible at this. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/thinkliberty.tl, on Instagram at thinkliberty, one word. You can find us on Twitter at think_liberty, and you can go harass Lonnie a little bit if you want, or he'll probably harass you. You can find us on Minds and Steam It, both at think-liberty. Is that correct, Chris? Chris is taking
Yes, it is. Sorry, I was muted.
All right. So yeah, you can find us there on those. You can also find we have stuff on DTube as well, and on YouTube we're at Think Liberty TV. We need to catch up, but we've been putting our podcast episodes there as well, and we're going to have some new video content coming out that you should take keep an eye out for. Caitlin, am I forgetting anything at all, or is there anything else that you might want to plug?
You got it all this time. So.
All right, getting better at this. I'm getting worse at some things and then better at others. Nothing comes without a cost. All right. Well,
and also look for exclusive memes to be on Steep Shot and D-Mania, which is also crypto-based like Steam It. So there you are.
I have no idea what those things are.
Yeah, I don't even know what they are. We should have a meeting about that.
Well, now you know. Now you know what they are. They're for memes, and you can make crypto off of them, and it's awesome. So.
And knowing is half the battle.
All right.
G.I. Joe.
Yes, Nathan's a real American hero.
Absolutely.
He was in the Air Force. Don't give him that satisfaction.
Excuse me, Mr. Missile Guy. I actually carried around a gun for a living.
Okay.
Yeah, and I had missiles. Okay,
there we go. It's got to this. What are you guys' opinion though on private missile turrets?
Yes.
I own 5.
I mean, I would like to purchase a Patriot missile.
That would just turn into a missile measuring contest.
Right, and that like permanently shuts down all of Kyle Wagner's arguments, right? Because
faction wars intensify.
Faction wars, though, but you got missile turrets, right? Because you tell him, I'll tell him all the time. I'm like, Kyle, he's like, someone's going to have to protect you. And I'm like, well, that's why you have a gun. He's like, well, a gun isn't going to do it. And I'm like, well, a missile turret might. So,
we need to have him back on for another episode.
We do.
We do. We hung out with Kyle in New Orleans. Kyle's great, man. I love hanging out with Kyle.
Yeah, he's good people. Kyle's
a really good guy. I gotta harass him some more to get him back on the podcast. He's always fun to have on.
Was that the dude walking around with spurs on his shoes?
No, that's Kevin.
Oh.
Spurs of freedom.
I was gonna say something nice about him because the Kevin guy seemed pretty cool. He liked my kilt.
Yeah, Kevin's great. Kyle's great. They're all good folks.
Oh, be sure to tune in next week. We're gonna have Daniel Behrman. He's running for Senate, I believe. He's gonna be a guest on our podcast. He's
the taxation of stuff
guy from convention.
We have one of his signs.
I have quite a few of his stickers from his table I took from convention. So, yeah, he's going to be on next week. That'll be released next Tuesday. So, be sure to subscribe to that episode.
Yeah, hella. Episode 36. I'm remembering it now, just in case I forget it later. Killing it. All right, you guys. Well, thanks everyone a bunch for joining. I appreciate your time. To anyone listening, same goes to you. Thanks very much for listening, and whether or not you like it, we'll probably be back.